Green Orb is a ship and have to straight fly through an extremely tight gap with a size portal that can kill you because it's extremely close to the spikes. That on its own sounds pretty terrible, but look at how far the spikes were moved away from the blocks. We've seen verifiers buff their level significantly and instantly beat it without having a chance to playtest it, but Azure Blast is not an example of this. DNM121 died to the 47% blind transition choke point 25 times from 0, and he died to the 55% whatever the hell this is 34 times from 0. This might not sound too bad, but he had a total of 65 attempts get past 55%, and the most amount of times he died to a singular percent past 55 was 6. 47 and 55 were clearly major choke points that caused issues during the verification, and it does not make sense that they weren't fixed. We have seen instances of amazing players super buffing their verifications and then hacking when they realized they went too far, and I strongly believe that Azure Blast is another example of this. A well-known verifier who I strongly believe hasn't hacked anything, on the other hand, is WizKid. WizKid is known as potentially the most well-rounded player in the community. Name any skill set, and he's good at it. Despite his horrible icons, WizKid has been known to tackle any challenge that comes its way, ranging from extremely high CPS levels to beating the hardest 2-player levels by himself. His ability to verify levels like Checked Steam and Silent Poltergeist might raise a few eyebrows because of his natural ability to alternate spam. When asked about it, he said that he didn't even have to train it because he had a talent for alternating. This hidden talent and his elite skill at all the other game modes definitely sounds a bit suspicious on paper. WizKid has been able to prove his legitimacy in 2 ways that hackers cannot, and the first is by regularly streaming. Most of his hardest achievements have been achieved by achieving his achievements on stream. It's pretty typical for hackers to start making progress on stream, say they play better off stream due to the lack of lag and pressure, then magically beat every level while just recording. WizKid streams multiple times per week and always uses a pretty clear hand cam that leaves nothing to the imagination in terms of legitimacy. The second way he proves his legitimacy is through his icons. If you were to hack some of the hardest levels in the game, including several legendary verifications, you'd probably want to use an icon set that people will copy. If he really cared about fraudulently influencing this game, he'd switch off some of these questionable picks. To recap, his icons aren't good enough for him to be a hacker, and he streams all of his hardest demons. A player who really should start streaming more to prove his legitimacy is Hover. I talked about Hover quite a bit in my last video, so if you want a more in-depth explanation as to why he's hacking, go watch that one after this one finishes. The TLDR is that Hover is known as the quote-unquote unluckiest GD player because of how many times he's had to quote-unquote re-beat list demons. He had to beat Sonic Wave Infinity 4 times before getting a list record, and he had to beat Unknown twice, just to name a few examples. He claims that the recordings messed up for most of those completions, but how can we know that this is the truth? Maybe these failed recordings were his way of saying that he hacked the level but made it way too obvious. We've seen hackers send mysterious signals like this in the past, most notably with Space UK. Space announced that he was quitting on multiple occasions, where he then took his videos down or straight up deleted channels. At the end of the day, he would always return right back to where he was. These fake retirements weren't him quitting the game, but trying to quit hacking. The guilt was eating away at him, and he tried to put an end to it all without admitting his wrongdoings, but he was too addicted to the praise. Hover could easily be pulling something similar. If I were on the list team, I would just ban him right now. On the flip side, another player who is most definitely legit is Brian Cheese. Brian Cheese is a Canadian player who is on the brink of pushing into the top 200 in Point of Crate. He's most known for having high energy and being egregiously wave carried. A lot of people look at this guy and automatically assume that he's hacking, and in a way, I can't blame them. First of all, there's the Slaughterhouse incident. He died in the last cube countless times, including 5 deaths on the last 2 jumps of the level. We've already gone over the chances that Hover is hacking due to having to rebeat levels multiple times, and you could argue that Brian Cheese might be doing something similar. It's not fully out of the picture that Brian purposely died a lot at the end of Slaughterhouse to make his hacks less obvious, but I have a strong reason to believe that this isn't the case. Brian is a very honest person in this community, as seen by the following clip.
Tria, thank you for the prime, bro. Appreciate it. Dude, do a backflip. Okay, okay, you know what, bro? Hold on. No, I can't do a backflip, I'm sorry.
The most notorious hackers in video games tend to struggle with lying compulsively. If Brian were a pathological liar himself, the fear of his perception being altered would have driven him to do a backflip live on stream. Since he can't actually do a backflip, it would have gone terribly wrong and he would have broken his ass, his foot, and his hand. A true GD hacker would have taken the risk every single time, so we know with confidence that Brian is legit. That was some pretty in-depth psychological analysis, but you don't need to be an expert to know that he isn't hacking. You can tell a lot about someone's shadiness just by the way they carry themselves, and body language is a huge part of this. Someone whose body language completely confirms their status as a hacker is Ravez. Ravez is one of the best players in Colombia, or at least that's what he wants us to believe. It only takes a quick look at the way he plays to realize that something is off. It's pretty typical for Geometry Dash players to slouch over their keyboards like absolute degenerates, but Ravez takes it to another level. Let's take a second to analyze his posture. His chair is turned at a roughly 60-degree angle with respect to his monitor. His shoulders are slightly open towards the direction that his chair rotates in, and his left shoulder is dropped slightly below his right one. This allows him to shift more weight onto the side of his body opposite of his clicking arm, and that makes it easier for him to subtly press a hotkey with his left pinky. It appears his head is slightly tilted towards his non-dominant side, which is in the opposite direction that his chair and body are turned in. He rests his forearm on the edge of his desk and uses his entire right arm to create leverage in order to hit the keyboard. He clicks so hard that he recoils at the elbow, and we can even see a bit of flexion in the shoulder. Between clicks, he lifts his hand so high you can't tell if he's stretching or asking to go to the bathroom. It's hard to tell exactly how much elevation his hand gets due to the parallax effect, but I can confidently estimate that the tip of his middle finger roughly reaches the height of his chin. I tried to play with a posture similar to this, and I couldn't even beat Stereo Madness. There is no way in any universe that someone actually beat Acheron while sitting like that. You might argue that his reaction sounds pretty legit and his whole family came to congratulate him on beating the level, and I'd say you're right. But when you think about it for more than 2 seconds, he's probably just so relieved that he doesn't have to pretend to sit like that anymore. If I had to sit in an AI generated position for more than a few weeks, I lose my mind when it's over as well. The funniest part is that Ravez didn't always sit like this. When he beat Slaughterhouse, he was way more upright, way more square, and his hand didn't travel nearly as far away from his keyboard between clicks. His Slaughterhouse completion is 100% legit, but his Acheron completion is 100% hacked. While Ravez is a hacker who everyone thinks is legit, there is one player in this community who everyone wrongfully thinks is hacking. That player is Tosh Deluxe. It has been 9 years since Tosh Deluxe verified Devil Vortex, and his haters still say that he hacked it. To be honest, I don't understand where these people are coming from, and here's why. Tosh has zero history of having any experience with fraudulently completing levels and making them look legit. Back in the 2015 and 2017 era, that wasn't even really a thing. The people who were hacking made it so painfully obvious that it's even surprising that they didn't get caught earlier. Tosh's Devil Vortex completion looks completely normal, and if this semi-auto theory from some conspiracy theorists never came out, nobody would bat an eye. The only slightly red flag is that he had a few lag spikes which inconveniently happened right before and right after the infamous wave spam. The thing is that he politely addressed this issue and even told us that we're allowed to enjoy the video. In classic Geometry Dash community fashion, everyone denied their own permission to enjoy Tosh's verification and had to turn his whole world upside down. On top of the perfectly normal verification with perfectly normal particles in the waves, why would someone hack a measly Devil Vortex after legitimately beating Old Death Corridor and Silent Circles? Devil Vortex is free compared to his most popular completions, so there's no benefit to hacking it. Besides, if he hacked Devil Vortex, he definitely would have put an absurd attempt count. 5,000 attempts on Devil Vortex in 2017 is perfectly normal when you've beaten unnerved Sakupin Circles in Old Slaughterhouse. Now if he did Devil Vortex as a hardest demon, then he'd clearly be lying about his attempts, but thankfully that wasn't the case. Tosh is clearly legit because the task at hand was simply easy for him. Out of everyone mentioned in this video, Tosh Deluxe is the player who I'm most confident in being legit. Now that we mentioned him, it's only fair to mention the player who I'm most confident in being a hacker. That player is none other than Math Genius. Math Genius is a YouTuber who recently hit 50,000 subscribers by not doing anything. His last video was uploaded on August 7th, 2023, and he showed no signs of any activity since then, until recently. In November of 2025, Math Genius livestreamed himself playing Stereo Madness for the GD charity event, but there was a twist. He claims that for his next video, he will be beating Stereo Madness 10,000 times. That sounds like an impressively stupid task, until you realize that it's been nearly 3 years since his last video. Stereo Madness is 90 seconds long. This means that if he beat the level 20 times in a row, he would have been playing for 30 minutes. If he spent 30 minutes a day beating Stereo Madness starting on September 1st, 2023, he would have completed his journey on January 13th, 2025. You might think that dedicating 30 minutes every day to Stereo Madness is kind of unrealistic, and looking back on it, I agree. Math Genius has made it extremely public that he is impressively unemployed and always has been, so he could easily dedicate way more than 30 minutes a day. With the amount of free time he has, I could even see him finishing the 10,000 completions within a month. There is no way this has taken him over 2 years, so there must be something really shady going on. My theory is that he did the first 1,000 completions totally legit, then he realized that he could just lie. He definitely took some pretty extensive breaks from the challenge and used a combination of speed hack and no clip to make up for the lost time. Perhaps he even dabbled in the usage of instant complete to really fudge the numbers. With a challenge like this, even using icon hack is enough to deem a completion illegitimate. We need all 10,000 of those completions to be legit. Now Math Genius, I know that you speed hacked a lot of these completions. You know that I know that you speed hacked a lot of these completions. I know that you know that I know that you speed hacked a lot of these completions. And you know what I propose is that in order to save your reputation, reset the counter all the way down to 0 and beat Stereo Madness 10,000 times without any hacks. That's a wrap on the Geometry Dash players who are most and least likely to be hackers. And if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, leave a comment down below telling me why. Click the button on screen to go check out my last video, and I'll see you guys there. Goodbye.